words, constantly hungry for words. Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is my second ever video, and I hadn't actually planned to make another booktube type video for my second video. I was trying to cover one of the other topics that I want to include in my channel, but let's be real here. I have been trying to work from home and homeschool a 7-year-old and wrangle a 2.5-year-old. I have not had time to plan content. So what I'm going to do today instead is something that I've come across in my travels through Booktube, is the Booktube newbie tag. And seeing as this is only my second ever video, I am a Booktube newbie. I'm a YouTube newbie. I don't actually know who the originator of this tag is, because I've seen so many people doing it. It seems to have got a bit lost, and sometimes I think the questions vary as well. So I went with the set of questions I found on the I think it's like the Booktube fandom wiki page. I don't know, I just googled and that's what I came across with. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Question number 1 is, why did you start this channel? Very good question. I don't really know. I just kind of got bored and decided to do it. I think probably I really like talking about books, but I don't have many friends in my real life who are big readers. I've got a couple, but we don't really sit around and talk about books that much. For the past couple of years, because I've been doing reading challenges and using Goodreads to track them and kind of chat to other people who are doing them, I've come to I really do like talking about books. And so I guess my recent YouTube addiction has merged with my Goodreads addiction, and the natural place for that to sit is on a channel in the world of Booktube. But I actually didn't, the idea of having a YouTube channel didn't actually start with books for me. 2019 was the worst year of my life, and so I kind of came to YouTube looking for people who had been through similar things, and to kind of start my healing process, learning from other people. Didn't necessarily find what I was looking for, but I did find a lot of good things along the way, including Booktube, and that kind of got me started thinking that, hey, maybe I could do this. I don't know. I can't really explain it. So yeah, I just thought I would start a channel as a way to be accountable as I make my focus on healing and rediscovering myself and rediscovering the things that I love. And one of those is books. So that has seemed like a natural place to start. Question number 2 is, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? So I guess as readers and as people, we all have different interests and passions and perspective on things. We've all got different books that we enjoy, and so I think, God, that sounds, am I going to say it? Yeah, I'll just say it. It's very cheesy, but I'll just say it anyway. We're all unique. We're all special. I guess what makes me different from other YouTubers is, I mean, as a person, I'm different because I'm older than a lot of the YouTubers I've seen. I'm definitely not as glamorous, and my house is not as beautiful. But in terms of the books that I read, I suppose I'm a little bit different in that I'm not, I don't really read series. I'm not a big fan of sci-fi or fantasy or romance either. I also don't really read a lot of new releases or trendy kind of titles because, well, mainly because I'm skint. I don't have money to spend on new books. A lot of the books I get are from the library or they're bought second hand, so they're very rarely cutting edge. Although the exception to that is that I do have a NetGalley account, and so sometimes I can pick up some pre-release titles in return for reviews. And I think there's a question later on about what sort of books I want to read, and I think that will explain a bit better how my reading tastes are different from a lot of other booktubers that I have seen. In terms of fun, I mean, there will be a lot of videos like this where it's just me talking about books, but I do love to go charity shopping for books, and I'll probably bring you guys along or do haul videos. I do have, this is probably where some of my other content might cross over, my house is in serious need of decluttering, and part of that is that all of my books are currently wedged into one bookcase which is overflowing, and it's in my office upstairs, and I really want to make books a big feature of my house, so I need to do some unhauling first, and then I want to get other bookshelves for the different rooms in my house, and so I'll probably do videos about that when I get to those little projects. So yeah, and I think just generally the mix of the content that I'm hoping to put together will make me a bit more fun. Maybe, I don't know, there's going to be mental health talk and divorce talk and stuff like that, so there's probably, I don't know if fun is the right word, but different, and I like different, although maybe that'll be a turn off for other people. If you're down for that, come along for the ride, I would love to have you join me. Question number 3. What are you most excited about for this new channel? I think for me it's just having an outlet. Like I said, I don't have people that I would talk to about books in this way in my real life, and also for some of the other things that I'm probably going to discuss on this channel, my friends have been amazing for me in the past year, but I'm conscious of being a little bit, not a burden, but you know, I'm not, although I'm making a channel about me, I'm not actually one of these people who likes talking about themselves. I just feel conscious that I'm using up people's time and mental energy and capacity and things like that for my problems. I think for a lot of them, if I threw books into the mix, they'd be like, look, you are too much. I'm also looking forward to this channel making me think about my reading in a different way. I was going to say I get through a lot of books, but if I'm talking to other booktubers, then I probably can't claim that. But compared to your average reader, I get through quite a few books, and rather than just, you know, finish one onto the next, finish one onto the next, it's nice to give myself this kind of pause to talk about books, to think about what I've read, and just to enjoy the experience of reading just beyond turning the page. I'm also looking forward to making connections with other people who have the same interests as me, who are into the same books as me, or even who want to challenge my opinions. But having said that, I'm quite awkward, I'm a bit shy about making those kind of first approaches with people and getting to know people, so I'm under no illusion that I'm gonna like suddenly become this whole different person just because I'm on Booktube now. I'm just gonna suddenly make all these new friends and be like the social butterfly of Booktube, because that's just not me. But yeah, I'm hoping that I can come out of my shell long enough to kind of create some bonds over books. Book bonds. And actually, even just from doing my first video and using editing software for the first time, I'm quite excited about learning new skills as well. So that's kind of a cool bonus that I didn't consider when I first hit record. Question number 4. Why do you love reading? I mean, I always have. I think it's a part of me. It's a need that I have. It's, you know, I think in some ways you're either a reader or you're not. And I just always have been. I think my earliest memory involves books. My parents have got bookshelves, and God, I must have been like 3 or 4, and I got it into my head to take all the books with penguins on the spine and line them up on the staircase. I got through quite a lot of books. Like I was productive that day. Like I just remember my parents discovering me and there was just books all upstairs. And I was the kind of kid that just always had to be reading. Like if I didn't have a book with me, if I was sitting eating my breakfast and I didn't have a book, I would like read the cereal packet. So there was always books around us when I was growing up. We went to libraries a lot. I can remember like every library I was around me when I was growing up, and I moved around a lot, so that's a lot of libraries. So yeah, that's just always been part of my life. But now, why do I love reading? I guess I like to read because I like to learn about the lives of others. I like to learn about how people different from me live, who live in different countries, different cultures, different genders, you know, all of that sort of thing. Well, I say genders, I'm not like, I will probably always pick a female or non-cisgendered person as a main character than a man, but that's just because I've read so many male characters in the past. I feel like other people need their voices now. But I also like seeing how other people see the world. So I like hearing the author's take on situations and people and all that sort of thing as well. But kind of beyond the book, I think reading is a time for me. And it gives me that chance to switch off. My head's always going, thoughts are always churning, but when I read, I can just focus, not all the time, but you know, the focus is on the page and the story, and I like that. I mean, I don't get that sense of escapism, but that just chance to be somewhere other than in here all the time. But also I'm quite nerdy. I like the sense of accomplishment. I like to track my reading. I do reading challenges, and I just really like that feeling of like, boom, done. Next one. Number 5. What book or series got you into reading? So it's funny that I have already said that I don't really read series, and I think that's because I sickened myself on them when I was younger. Particularly as like a preteen and a young teenager, I went through all the big hitters of my sort of generation. So I did Goosebumps, and I did The Babysitter's Club and Sweet Valley High, and I read the Point horror books. And also, like, I really liked it when I think it was Scholastic, you know, I used to get like the little paper catalogues at school with books in them, and then the book fair would come around, and like my mum would always let me order at least 1 or 2 books from those. And so there was a lot of random other titles and things that I picked up at the library as well, but it's the series that I always remember from my reading when I was younger. And I guess it helped that I grew up in a time where we only had 4 channels on television. I know that might seem alien to a lot of you, but yeah, there used to only be 4 channels on television. This is before Freeview, and I grew up, we didn't have Sky, we didn't get a video player until I was like 12, so there wasn't always stuff to watch on TV, and apart from, like, me and my brother used to be outside all the time, but if we weren't outside, I would probably be reading. Number 6 is, what question would you ask your favourite booktubers? So like I said, I'm quite new to Booktube in general, but I have been slowly building up my subscriptions to other booktubers, and I guess probably the bigger names that other people might know that I could mention here that I'm enjoying is Emma from Drinking by My Shelf. I think she's hilarious. I really like Ariel Bissett. Leanne from Literary Diversions, I just found her this weekend and I really, really enjoy her videos. And probably a special mention to Katie from Books and Things, who she had done a video about starting her own Booktube channel, and that's where I heard about this tag. So that's why I'm giving it a shot. So thank you, Katie. In terms of questions I would ask them, Booktube channel specific questions I would ask them would just be generally like, how did you get started? Why did you start? And I suppose what sort of content do you like? I'd be interested to know. So I should probably go and see if any of them ever did this newbie tag. That would be a good place to start. 7. What challenges do you think starting a Booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? A lot of the challenge is sitting right here. Probably something that you should know about me is that I'm treated for depression, have been most of my adult life, and so I can really struggle with motivation for one. Just that I'm okay once I get started, but it can be really hard for me to get started on a project or a task that I've got to do if my head is in the darker places. I can get that feeling of like, oh, what's the point? All that sort of, I won't get into it just now, but yeah, so there's all of that. But my depression also affects my concentration levels. So I really need to be in the right space to think about a topic, decide what I'm going to say it, edit it, blah. So, my plan is at the moment just to shove up a Booktube video every Saturday. And then hopefully build that up to one other additional kind of other topic video every week, until I kind of figure out where my sweet spot is in terms of content and how regular I post. So we'll see if my head will let me do that. Another thing that probably comes with all of that is my confidence levels. I have big issues with my weight, with the way I look, the way I sound, and it was a surreal experience doing my first video and then editing my first video and having to see my face for ages and hear my voice and but I didn't hate the experience, and I think actually this might be quite a way to help my relationship with myself as well, and just get comfortable in my own skin, which is something I have never been. So there's a couple of challenges, but from kind of a technical point of view, I guess I think the biggest challenge for me will be building the channel up, actually getting people to watch my content, making content that people will enjoy, obviously for a start, but then finding a way to get it out there. I kind of understand a bit about SEO, and making connections with other people. The world of algorithms is not one I have a map to. So question number 8. When did you start reading? So I feel I've kind of already touched on this a little bit with the series I read as a kid and all, but it's been surrounded by books. And I think libraries have always played a big part in my reading. My mum always used to take us to libraries. I moved around a lot as a kid, but I always remember the libraries that we went to. Probably standout ones were when we lived in Gravesend. I always remember in the kids section of the Gravesend library they had, it was like a bookshelf, but it was a train, so you could go inside and pretend to drive the train and things, and I always remember that. And then when I was at school in Surrey, the mobile library used to come around, and we always used to get to go out of class and go to the mobile library. So it was basically just a van or a lorry that was a library. So that was kind of cool. I kind of fell out of reading in my teens, kind of. I had a few years of just being a bit of a kid, and I just kind of spent all my time being a bit of a nerd, hanging around in a bus shelter with a bunch of other nerds, and just never really had the time for reading. But that's, I guess, what it started to change when I had my oldest son when I was 18, and I had to kind of chill out a bit, so I had more time at home to read. And then because I was at college and then went on to uni and then went on to jobs which involved commuting, that's where I had more time to read, and that's where books really kind of came into my life in the big way that they are now. I think the big push to kind of like reading to volume like I do now is I used to have a live journal. Again, making me feel ancient because there's probably a lot of people on here won't know what that was, but I had a live journal, and one of the groups was running like a read 50 books in a year challenge, which at the time was quite daunting, but I decided to do it, and I did it. And I remember piling up all the books that I had read and just feeling like amazing. At the end of the year I had read all those books, and that really lit the fire under me. I mean, I loved books so much. When I was at uni, I worked weekends at Waterstones for a little bit, which was like absolutely the best job ever, and I would love to go back. If money wasn't an option, I'd like literally would do nothing else but work in a bookshop. But then once I like graduated and started working, my reading kind of dropped off a little bit. I was probably averaging about like one book a month or something. Until I discovered the reading challenges on Goodreads. So it was the Pop Sugar one that I did first, and now I do Pop Sugar challenge, I do the Around the Year challenge, and I do the Reading Women challenge as well. And that really like keeps me, not that reading doesn't keep me engaged anyway, but that really kind of keeps me upping my momentum and keep going and reading and reading and reading. Number 9. You'll be glad this is a short answer because it is where do you like to read? And really I only read in a couple of places. If I'm in the office, I read on my commute in on the train. Sometimes I read on my lunch break, but don't always. And then when I'm at home, I'm either on my sofa or I read in my son's room when I'm waiting for him to fall asleep. Must add here that's my 2.5-year-old, not my 17-year-old, because that would be weird. And then I read in bed every single night before I turn off my light. Is number 10. It's what kind of books do you like to read? And I think as I read more, particularly with the reading challenges that I mentioned, I've really kind of learned what books are going to appeal to me, I'm going to enjoy, and so I'm pretty good now at picking the right genre and the right book, that I very rarely read a book I don't enjoy. So I've kind of honed down what I read, but in that I've also kind of broadened it because I will try other genres, either if it's because it's a specific challenge request, or just because I know now that, you know, sometimes YA is okay, and like when it comes to sci-fi, I'll dip my toe in dystopian novels and things like that, but I know the characteristics of a book that I'm probably likely to enjoy before I start reading it. So I do mainly read fiction, but I do like memoirs as well, not so much like misery lit. That used to be, well, yeah, no, I think it's kind of, I think its day is over a bit, but it was really big. Don't know if anyone remembers the boy called Dave, man called Dave, no, child called It. I can't remember the other ones, but you know, that kind of, the only story was the retelling of the abuse, whereas, I mean, I'm not put off by a memoir that's got like a rocky, rough childhood element to it, but I think when there's it's not just that retelling of the abuse as a point to writing a book about that. So I'm thinking recent reads like The Glass Castle or Educated, where there's an actual story at the core of it. And I'll also read non-fiction, but I can really only read non-fiction if it's something I'm already interested in. I know there's people that can pick up non-fiction about things that they didn't know they were interested in until they've read the book, but I typically tend to just like non-fiction around kind of feminist issues or food or personal difficulties, circumstances, that sort of thing. I'm much more inclined to look at those than say a non-fiction book about, I think there was one recently about colour. I probably wouldn't pick that up. But when I say I read mainly fiction, that's not very specific. So let me fling some subgenres and titles and authors at you so you kind of get a sense of the sorts of books I'll probably be talking about on this channel. So we'll start with classics. I think some of my favourites are Jane Eyre, Picture of Dorian Gray, Tent of Arville Hall, Pride and Prejudice was good. It's the only Jane Austen I've read those. Howard's End, The Great Gatsby, to kind of those more modern classics like 1984 and The Catcher in the Rye, The Colour Purple, The Handmaid's Tale, and right up to contemporary fiction. I probably class contemporary as from 90s onwards, so depends how old you are, whether that's contemporary or not. But I'm thinking things like God of Small Things, Chocolat. I like writers like A.L. Kennedy, Zadie Smith, Ian McEwan, David Mitchell, Kazuo Ishiguro, Ali Smith, Diane Setterfield, Jeffrey Eugenides, the guy that wrote The Virgin Suicide, Zoe Strachan, Louise Welsh. But I also, having said that, I'm not really like author loyal. I don't think I've read like the complete backlist of any one author, and I would tend to pick the book on its story rather than an author. So I read a lot of authors. There's tons of authors on my Goodreads list where I've only read one of their books, or they're not big name authors. I don't let that put me off either. I don't really read from bestseller lists. Because really, I mean, I'm just picking from what's available in the charity shop a lot of the time, or recommendations that I've heard on podcasts or Goodreads and things, and what's available in my library. So it can be a bit of an eclectic mix. I like a touch of mystery or magical realism sometimes, and I actually really like some historical fiction. It's funny, I would never have said that before, but when I look back at the books that I've read and the books I've enjoyed, there is quite a few historical novels in there. Probably, I think I only go back as far as like the 1800s in terms of that. Maybe not even as far as that, like I'll read classics from then, but probably in terms of historical fiction, I probably stick to like the 20th century onwards. I'm not really into like bodice ripping or Knights of the Realm or any of that sort of stuff, and I don't like rich people problems. I don't like, all that high society. I'm not interested in like political thrillers or kind of anything set in the legal world, or anything like that. Just doesn't speak to me. I like stories about real people with real issues most of the time. So I hope that has given you a flavour of who I am, what I like to read, and what this channel will hopefully eventually become. And I hope you will give me a thumbs up, maybe even a subscribe, and join me for future videos. If you have watched this, leave me a comment so I can say hi and know who you are. So until next time, bye. Is that I am a bit older. I'm 35.